Flipping back here to our look at the different authentication methods that exist here on this server, let's actually lock the server down a bit so that we ensure that the incoming clients are not going to use that PPTP protocol that we don't want to see them using. I'll leave the authentication methods just where they are here now, but I'm actually going to add in a certificate here onto the server so that the server can participate in certificate-based authentication. Let's go ahead and hit the cancel button here, because down here at the bottom is where I would go about actually binding an SSL certificate to support that certificate-based authentication. Now I've got to have that certificate to exist here in my list of certificates on this server. And so in order to get one, I need to either grab one from a third party or to request one from an internal PKI. Now I'll tell you that here in this environment, I'm not going to go through the steps you would go through to install a PKI, but I'll have you know that I've gone through actually installing Active Directory Certificate Services onto our domain controller, DC. Just installed the certification authority, pretty much did the basic setup for that CA so that we could get ourselves to the point where here in IIS Manager, we can go about requesting and then receiving a certificate that will support that server authentication need that RRAS requires. Let me come here to the server and then click here again on Server Certificates. So remember, over on DC, all I've done is install ADCS and the Certificate Authority Role Service. If you want to stop here and go install that into your demo environment, you can do so here now. Or when you get to the 4.12 content, I'll go through the entire process of installing all those components a little later on. That extended discussion on certificates is part of what I put together for Pluralsight for the 70-412 exam. With that in place, we can come here to create a domain certificate and then provide the appropriate information here for that domain certificate. The domain certificate has to have a common name that's equal to the external address for the server that we're attaching to. Now, we'll assume here that our external address is the same as our internal address, so it'd be remote1.company.pri. In your production world, if you've got an external domain namespace like company.com, this common name would need to be something that an external client could resolve from out in the rest of the internet. The rest of the information here is not really necessary, but we'll put some information in Pluralsight, OU, and Denver, Colorado, for example, because that's where I happen to be today. And if I choose the next button, I can identify the online CA that I've configured. This is a root, an online enterprise root CA that is currently on that machine, dc.company.pri. If I choose OK and provide a friendly name, so remote1 RRAS, being just a name that I can then find later on, this will request and then receive the certificate here in IIS. And that's all that's necessary for us to then go through the next step, which is to import in and use that certificate in our RRAS console. Let me minimize this, and we're back here in the RRAS console again, where I can then bind the certificate to the appropriate certificate that I need to here in RRAS. Now, let me bring back this little properties screen here, and under Security, choose that remote1.company.pri certificate. Now this certificate, again, is just a basic one that was requested from our online CA, but just simply adding this certificate here into this configuration now allows me at my client to go about reestablishing the connection so that the client can support that connection here to my RRAS server using certificate authentication. We do, however, have a couple of things we have to do over at the client side in order to support this. Let me flip back over here to my desktop. And what I want to show you here are just a couple of items that we have to fix in order for this to work. Now, in the real world, you need to have some sort of name resolution for the fully qualified domain name for your RRAS server. And in a production world where you have external clients, you probably have an external DNS server that would support that name resolution. Here in our little demo environment, we don't have that DNS server. There is no internet DNS for us to look at. So what we need to do is we need to sort of fake that name resolution to our server remote1.company.pri. And if I come over here to the location C Windows System32 Drivers Etsy and open up our hosts file here, you can take a look at the little faking that I've done by adding in a remote1.company.pri local hosts resolution to the address 192.168.1.106. Now the only reason why I've done that is because I need that so that I can support the use of the certificate and the full trust chain of the certificate that I'm attaching to here in just a second. Let's test to make sure I can connect to remote1.company.pri. And yep, I can indeed see it. Oops, I forgot that remote 1's actually not responding to ping. So let's assume that that connection actually works to 192.168.1.106. With this in place, let us now go about actually recreating a new VPN connection that makes use of that existing certificate. Let me go ahead and add in our VPN connection here, and for our VPN provider, we'll again choose Microsoft, and we'll call this remote1.company.pri, and we'll use that as well for the server name. Remember just a minute ago that we used the IP address as opposed to a fully qualified domain name. It's in this situation that we have to use the actual fully qualified domain name because it needs to match the name that's on the certificate the server is using. Let me punch in here our username and password, so company G Shields and the password, and I'll choose save here so that we can come back to the charms menu, choose settings, and then attach using our new VPN connection here on this client. Let's see if we can make this connection. Looks like we're connected here. And if I come back here, let's see if I can once again ping dc.company.pri. Yep, indeed, we do have a good connection to the inside network. And so what I want to show you here is back on our server remote 1. If we take a look at the ports that are being consumed by this machine, I should now see a connection not over PPTP, but instead way down here at the bottom over the very best of the protocols, IKE version 2. So this gives you a feel for the extra steps that are required, and there aren't that many, but a few extra steps that are necessary in order to elevate yourself from the very simple implementation to the much more secure approach here using certificate authentication.